Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of The Space Between. My name is Zach Eichels and I'll be your host for today. Today we're joined by...
Craig Wallace with the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition. I'm the chairman.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Craig. We really appreciate your time. Got some good questions for you here about the lagoon.
It's my pleasure and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, first question, what exactly is the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition and what is the overall purpose of the organization?
So we'll take you back in history a little bit, in 2016. So those that were here then know that there was a major fish kill back then. And that's kind of what stirred up the whole environmental community. Everybody got very upset about that, obviously.
Sure.
It's kind of like the cry for help from the lagoon, because it had been suffering for a number of years before that. But that was the final thing that everybody said, uh-oh, we're really in trouble now, so we got to do something. So this actually ended up being a fairly small group of people that were aware of the problem and also very well connected with the community to say, you know, this is a problem that no one organization can fix.
Right.
We need everybody working together to fix this. And so what happened was that group said, okay, well, I know all these people in the environmental groups, and then somebody else said, hey, I know all these people in government and the county, and then a key player in this is the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. So Dwayne DeFries, who is running the program, decided that now was a good time to really reorganize this whole thing and put something in place that could really bring the community together. And they created a program with the county, which we now know as the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Program. And that was the foundation for the whole community to work on getting something to finally fix the lagoon. And so we came up with the program, half-cent sales tax paid for by the community, and so that the coalition was kind of the glue that pulled all that together to get the community to understand how important it was to pass this sales tax in 2016.
Right.
So fortunately, people kind of went along with that, and 63% of the voters said yay, and that's kind of where we all started. But we recognized that, okay, so now we've got some funding, maybe at that time I think it was 300 million, now it's more like over $500 million, but it's a place to start, but we know that isn't going to fix the whole thing. So those founding members of the coalition said, we've got to continue this on. We've got to, one, educate the public, and we've got to continue to pursue funding for the lagoon, and that's what we call advocacy. So those are the two founding things that the coalition has started from the beginning and is continuing to do today. We have new members, but same concept.
Right, right. So you kind of touched on it. You hear a lot about different organizations helping the lagoon, and I think some people can get confused, rightfully so, who is doing what. So, what is the difference between something like your organization and the Citizens Oversight Committee or the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program?
Well, the good thing is that there are so many organizations that are interested in the lagoon and working. Right. So we're very happy about that. So the thing that differentiates the coalition is, as I said, we were kind of that glue that kind of brought all this stuff together. We had people that were very integrated with the community, knew a lot of the governing people in the community, and knew a lot of the environmental community. So we were a natural group to kind of, we call the coalition, is to try to coalesce everybody together and working towards common goals. So the key things that we recognized that we needed was, one, educating the public on, to keep them aware of the progress of the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program, as well as advocate for more funding. So those are the two key things that the coalition does. And one of the reasons why we can do the advocacy work to get more funding is because we aren't part of the pay-to-play organizations that rely on that tax for funding for things they do. So, but because of that, we need to get funding from somewhere, so we kind of have to rely on people that are passionate about the lagoon and to help us out in that area. But the education and advocacy are the things that really we focus on.
And so keeping in the vein of funding, where is most of the funding coming from for the lagoon's broader restoration efforts, for the physical projects that are happening in the lagoon?
That's a real good question. So obviously we talked about the half-cent sales tax, which at this point is estimated, after the 10-year program is over in 2026, is going to have like $586 million, give or take some. But back at the beginning of this program, when the NEP put together an estimate of what it might cost to really renovate the lagoon, it was, in those days, it was like about $5 billion to over many decades. It wasn't just something that was going to happen in 10 years. So that number obviously has increased with inflation, so it's probably somewhere between 7 to 10 billion at this point in time. We know that $500 million isn't going to fix the lagoon, no matter what the bigger number is. So, but what that $500 million does is it provides seed money. And that's critical. You got to, sort of the adage, you have to have money to make money. Well, it's sort of that same thing when you're dealing with grants. And that's basically where you get funding from that doesn't come from the local taxes. And the grants are from state, federal, and there's even private sources for funding for grants. So having that seed money where you can say, well, I'm going to put this much out there and I'd like to accomplish this, but I'm going to ask you to pitch in 50% to do it. So that each dollar that we put in at least doubles itself because it's being used to attract this grant funding.
So can you describe some of the main issues that are plaguing the lagoon's health as an ecosystem? What's been driving some of the negativity?
So I can kind of summarize it in one word, but it very much simplifies it, and that's algae. So you have to kind of ask, well, what causes algae? And it's not just algae. Algae is everywhere, right? But it's algae in this macro sense. I mean, the whole lagoon just gets consumed with these algae blooms. And the problem with that is that it clouds the water. And unfortunately, seagrass has to have light. Seagrass, which is kind of the founding thing that everything in the lagoon kind of, it's the nursing ground for, fish, it's for, crabs and all kinds of stuff. You got to have seagrass in order to have a healthy lagoon. So without the light from the algae blocking the light, so that's what caused the seagrass to go away. So what's causing all that is man-made. It's basically it's your fertilizer, it's your the chemicals we spray on our lawns. It's the stormwater runoff from the agricultural fields, from our own lawns, from the fertilizer from our lawns. And there's a legacy load in the lagoon, which we call muck, which is that black mayonnaise stuff that sits on the bottom of the lagoon, which is basically a dead zone. Nothing can grow in that. So unfortunately, that's an accumulation of many years of doing the wrong stuff, pouring sewage into the lagoon, pouring all the fertilizer and all kinds of stuff into the lagoon. So we got to clean that out too. But but we've got to change our habits. We've got to change the way we live our life. And that comes starting with what you do in your yard, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. It starts with, how can everybody participate in this process? Yeah, the half-cent sales tax is one thing that everybody participates in, whether you like it or not, but that's only part of the problem. We all need to work together to fix this problem, so it's an all everybody type thing to address.
Right. So what type of restoration efforts is your organization and other stakeholders working on currently?
So if you go to our website, basically there's a plethora of information there, but if you go just to the what can you do section, and it's got things, as a matter of fact, you've contributed to some of those things in terms of what you can do in your yard, build a rain garden, but use rain barrels and that sort of thing. So what we as a coalition do is not try to, there's a number of different organizations out there that have the in the water, all kinds of the volunteer programs to plant trees and plant mangroves and so forth. We don't do that. What we do is make sure that everybody in the public is aware of what all these organizations are doing and who's doing what when. When's the beach cleanup? When's the mangrove planting? When's
Sure.
the oyster thing? So we're kind of the clearinghouse, you could say, I guess, for information. And that's basically what we get. A lot of people come to us, our website, helpthelagoon.org, just to ask that question. What's going on? Where can I help? So we do that, but we do also try to push the education side, which is important in terms of what you can do yourself in your yard and so forth. Clean up your dog poop and
Right.
stuff like that.
Right. So you guys are a vessel of knowledge for others.
We're kind of a clearinghouse, or not a clearinghouse, a switchboard or whatever.
Oh,
we
yeah.
try to connect people, and
That's a good
our
analogy.
role.
Yeah. So have you seen improvement in the lagoon over the last few years?
Yeah, now that's the good news, right? And I think you've noticed it right here in Port Canaveral, is that we are starting to see some seagrass regrowth. That's kind of what, the be-all, end-all of what this restoration effort is trying to do. And so even in areas like the Mosquito Lagoon came back really quickly last summer, and we said, well, that's great, except for nobody lives around Mosquito Lagoon, so we're not impacting that. But we have actually seen a lot of, not a lot, we've seen little areas of seagrass regrowth. Someone took some video from up the very north end of the lagoon, of the Indian River Lagoon, where it basically was a dead zone. It has no circulation there, and they have large areas of really healthy seagrass growth.
Wow.
Manatees like to eat seagrass, right? So one of the issues we have is we got to, kind of balance the need for the manatees to eat something with how do we regrow seagrass and have it grow to the point where it's not being consumed faster than it's being regrown. So that alone is a huge thing. But that happened because we started to control some of the inputs to the lagoons so that now we've got clearer water, because it was getting that sun down so that it could let the seagrass grow. That was a key thing. So the clean water and the regrowth of seagrass finally but it's just getting started. I mean, we are nowhere near, we wiped out over 90% of the seagrass in the lagoon, and
Wow.
It's going to take many, many years to bring that back. So there are some efforts going on to replant seagrass, but we're just in the infancy on that. So.
Okay. Some hope. So what are some basic steps that individuals can take to help improve the state of the lagoon themselves?
Glad you asked, because that's so important. It's you, the individuals, that are going to really make the difference. I mean, what the county does in these restoration programs is important, but what you do on an everyday basis going forward is what's going to keep the lagoon clearer and cleaner. So on our website, once again, helpthelagoon.org, we've got several examples of things that you can do in your yard. As I think I mentioned, plant a rain garden. Basically what you want to do in your yard is retain the rain that falls in your yard. If you can keep it there in the yard, it doesn't go down the storm drains, which goes into the lagoon, then you've done your job. You've really kept it in your yard, which is like fertilizer. Your yard need fertilizer, but keep it in your yard. We don't want it to wash off. So the rain gardens, rain barrels, keeping the dog poop cleaned up, and not just dog poop, but all the things that you would normally do in maintenance of your yard. When you wash your car, do it over the grass so that it's absorbing it into the grass, not running down the storm drains. So keeping things out of the storm drains is really, really important. And then planting trees, planting stuff that grows, and that absorbs the rainfall. So all the things that you can think of that you can grow healthy in your yard without adding a lot of fertilizer and irrigation to it are the key things you want to do. And that's pretty much what the Florida-friendly plantings and the there's a lot of different programs out there where you can get the right plants to use in your yard, where you're not going to be having something that one isn't doing any good for the lagoon, but it's also may overgrow your whole yard. So learning about the things that you can do, what are the proper plants in the proper place, which is a lot of what the University of Florida IFAS Extension Service does, and they have the Florida Yard, My Florida Yard program, which you can learn about what are the right plants and where to put them and things like that. So all those types of things you can do.
It's a lot of stuff. So at this moment, what gives you hope right now? Do you have hope for what
Absolutely.
is to come?
I wouldn't be as passionate as I am about all the problems that the lagoon has, because I swim in the lagoon. I'm in the lagoon a lot. I want it to be healthy. So one of the things, and I haven't been a resident here for that long. I've been here for about 8 years. And when I first moved here, I got in, that was when we had the fish kill, and I got involved in a lot of the environmental group programs. And I was so happy to see the number of people in Brevard County that really are passionate and work. I mean, they put a lot of volunteer hours in between the zoo, the Restore Our Shores program, Marine Resources Council, all, Keep Brevard Beautiful, all these organizations, they just use that energy that people have. So that is probably my number one thing. But there's many different things where I see hope. I mean, obviously the seagrass coming back was a big thing to see that. But the fact that the state legislature 2 years ago decided they were going to invest $100 million a year in the lagoon, that's unheard of. In no time in history has any governmental organization invested that much in an environmental program. So that's a huge thing. The other thing is there are a number of organizations that are saying, well, we need to educate people. We need to get people more familiar with what's going on with the lagoon. And a perfect example of that is what the Brevard Zoo is doing with the new aquarium projects. There'll be an education center there. Just if you can throw a couple bucks their way, that's going to be a show place at, they call it the beacon for the lagoon, and it really is. It's going to shine a light on the lagoon and give people an opportunity to see firsthand what's going on with the lagoon and what's being done to fix it. So I think those are some of my top hits.
Absolutely, and I'll be right next to the city of Cape Canaveral.
That's right.
So last question, where can one go to be a part of the coalition? Where do they go to find out more information? I know you've said it a few times, but hit it home one more time.
Helpthelagoon.org. So where do you go on there? So if you just want to, kind of like the minimum amount, you just have a question to ask, then just go contact us and ask us a question. Or if you want to sign up for a newsletter. We have a very constant rapport going on social media these days, and just kind of look and see what's going on there. If you want to participate in that, we've got ways where you can help actually send those messages out to people, your friends and so forth. But basically, the efforts that we do are in the area of communications and advocacy. So advocacy is the group that we've identified is the Lagoon Voices, and it's getting your voice involved in helping to get funding, helping to pass legislation that's good for the lagoon and that sort of thing. So Lagoon Voices on our webpage is a good place to go to get involved.
That's awesome. Craig, thank you so much for your time today. We do really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of The Space Between. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.